Hi everyone! In today's episode, I'm sharing with you a chat that I recently had with my friend Heather O'Neill, founder of Mushmina. Mushmina is a sustainable fashion brand based in Morocco with their main clientele in the US. Heather has founded the business more than 10 years ago and has been running it ever since. So, in this interview, she's going to be sharing with us her beginnings as an entrepreneur, her daily challenges, but also what impact COVID had on her business, just like it had on millions of small businesses around the world. So if you're interested, keep on watching. My first question to you, Heather, is how would you describe Mushmina? And also tell us what is the meaning of Mushmina?
Okay. So I took a note before I was thinking, I love when people ask questions that makes you, revisit. And honestly, I would say in a very short, simple sentence, Mushmina is a creation to employ and empower women. And that's in our mission statement. And that's when I revisit the mission statement to try to rewrite it every couple of years, I come back to the same thing. It's very simple. We're creative people and we created a business really to employ and empower women. And my husband always says, you should have started a nonprofit. And I'll talk about that later, because the beneficiary of what we do was really Moroccan women, because I saw a need in the market to connect them to buyers, so I sort of worked the other way around. So we really could have been a nonprofit. I mean, I still might do it. I don't know, I can talk about the evolution of what we do. But, I mean, we're a brand, we're an accessories brand, but artisans and women are at the heart of what we make. So I try to employ as many women as we can. So it's probably maybe 85% women produced. Yeah, when the name Mushmina, it's funny, it was a nickname that I called my sister when we were kids. So
Oh,
when we, yeah, it's a made up word, and people think it's like Mushmina or something, Moroccan Darisha, but it's really just a made up word like Ashkash Bagash. It doesn't exist, so it was good because like in Google, we're the only Mushmina.
this is
but
your
but
youngest sister?
yeah, my younger sister, and the name to us was like, it sort of was a nickname for little sister. From when we were like 5 years old, like I called my sister that. So we thought of that for the name of the business, and we just laughed. And so when people call and ask for Mushmina, we still laugh. Some people think my name is Mushmina, but to us it means little sister, and that was a sister-run business, and it also was about empowering women. So the name made sense.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yeah, but how does one actually start a sustainable fashion brand in Morocco?
Yeah.
Particularly, like given you're not Moroccan, I suppose. I mean, I suppose, yeah, you're not Moroccan. Uh,
Yeah, well, now I joke that I'm married to Morocco. I said, well, now I'm really here. I can't leave if I want. My kids are not Moroccan. We really we're artists. We're designers, my sister and I. So we started. I don't know if you know the backstory. I was in the Peace Corps, so that was my introduction to Morocco. I was a Peace Corps volunteer almost 20 years ago, and I like to say Morocco found me, and from a very young age, I sort of had a calling to join the Peace Corps. I used to see commercials for it on American TV. And when I have a design background, so I went to the School of Visual Arts in New York, and I studied graphic design, but my real love was fashion. My parents talked me out of it. I can talk about that later too, like following your passion, because you end up coming back to it. Um, and and I worked in a material sourcing company in New York for a couple of years. And I wasn't cut out for a 9 to 5. I have more entrepreneurial spirit. And even though it was a creative company, um, it was called Material Connection. So we used to source products for companies like Nike and other smaller brands that were doing product development. So I was always working in product development. And one aha moment I had, stuff I'll share with you, was this woman from Ghana came in to my office in New York with potato printed fabrics, very artisan sort of rudimentary type of printing. And she was looking for a market for her prints. And it was just an aha moment to me, because it came back again to the Peace Corps, developing, working in the developing world, and working with artists and crafts, like handmade craft. And actually I still have the textile. It's in my studio somewhere. I just rearranged my studio. I'll have to show you. I still have the textile because it was that moment that it was like my passion intersected. I thought if I could help someone in Ghana create a market for their artisan products, like that's where I felt like my real calling was. So that was like, fast forward a couple months, I ended up quitting my job and joined the Peace Corps. And the office was in the World Trade Center at the time. And I went down there and I said, I'll teach English. I don't know where you would put me. I'm a designer, but I feel like I have to do this. And they said, we have a perfect program for you in Morocco for artisan small business development. And it was like, that was it, Miktoub, And I was so excited to be sent to Morocco. I mean, it was like a dream assignment, really, to work with artisans in Morocco.
And you've never left ever since?
I have, yeah. So I did 2.5 years. I lived in Bujad. It was a small town, and I worked with some of the ladies that I still work with today. They became friends, like sisters. And my program was to help them market, export carpets. But I also did things like teach English. I taught art. I started a running club for women. So, like my passion was always women's empowerment and development. And so then I finished in 2005 and I left. I went back to New York. I got a graduate degree in international affairs and business. And what year was that? 2008. So then I returned to Morocco in 2009 with a business plan in hand, a rough business plan.
Okay. I was gonna ask you, like, like you're talking about it, like you were talking about it earlier as a passion, for women empowerment, and now you're acting like as a businesswoman, with a business plan. Did you think that in the middle there was like a market gap? Did you see an opportunity there to start a business, or were you more like, I want to help these women, I want to, improve their lives, we can do something together? What was your approach?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it was more on a whim. It was more like I'm an artist and a designer and I wanted to help. And I have this interest in international development. So one piece of advice I'll come back to future entrepreneurs, I would say, work with people that have different skills than you. I think my sister and I, one of our challenges is that we're both designers. So we're more coming from the arts perspective than business. So there are a couple things I wish I would have done, like built a team, gotten investors. We didn't do that. We did it like a bootstrap, small business style. I mean, it's a fun story. And the first few years of our business were probably the most fun because we were, exploring but we really did it on a tight budget where I think I could have been more effective if I had other investors behind me, So I would say we approached it more like artists. What can we create? How can our background intersect with how we can help women in Morocco?
And when did you officially launch the company?
So 2009, we literally created a WordPress blog. Mushmina is born. That was it. We just put it out there. Like we had an idea and just put it out there. And then, then things progress. But I feel like part of our struggle was like bootstrapping the whole time. So now, that was 12 years ago. And, it's been a marathon. Like, any small business person will tell you every year has been a different challenge. And yeah, not easy, but it's a passion, of course.
Right. So, I have a question about how you got started. You had a rough business plan, but how did you convince your sister to join the adventure?
So Katie was on board from the beginning. So I had more business background than she did. And she is really the creative director. And she always sort of had a vision of what trends were. We weren't really trend focused, but she sort of knew what people were interested in the US. And so then I moved to Morocco full time in 2009, got married in 2011. So I never really went back after that. So I've been here since 2011, 10 years pretty much full time. And the first 2 years we did pop-ups. So we did like pop-ups at friends' houses. So we were like market testing in small circles, with a very small budget and just a limited production. And then our first big show was probably Bryant Park in New York does a holiday market. So we took a booth. It's like a kiosk there
Mhm.
for the holiday season. And that's, you know, like high volume holiday traffic. It's a lot of work. That was like our first big risk because, you know, it's like buying a car to get into those shows, like 15,000 for the booth for a month. A big risk for a small business, but you make the money back. You
Oh,
know,
okay,
it's no,
so the ROI
yeah,
is good. Okay. Okay.
yeah, we did. And then we did those Christmas markets for the next couple of years because it's such a moneymaker in 1 month. You know, you really hustle, but it's such high volume. And then the best one was Grand Central Station, you know, and these are curated markets, so they only accept like 75 vendors, you know, all from all over the US. So that was a great one. Grand Central Station, the traffic through the train station every day. I mean, we really did well there, you know.
Mhm.
So our sales were always like East Coast, New York, you know. So some of the things I'm looking to expand with Mushmina moving forward is like the European market. I mean, there's just a lot we haven't done yet. It's been mostly US market.
Yeah, I was gonna ask you about Europe, but yeah, you just answered it. Um, I mean, you talk about, how you got started, like it was, like so simple, but I suppose it wasn't that simple, to put in like $15,000 as an investment to be
Yeah.
the Brian Park show. It's not that easy, it's a lot
Uh,
of money. So how did you come to deciding with your sister to really put in the money and invest, that amount into being present there?
yeah. I mean, all those markets, they have statistics. So they say this is the average of what the vendors did last year. And like the Grand Central market, the average was like $100,000 is what people made, you know, something like that, 99,000 roughly in a month. So you know, it was a calculated risk, but that said, we also had bombs. You know, it's like when malls are starting to go down, people are not shopping in you know, contained mall spaces like they were. And you know, the people that sold us the space, they want business. So I feel like they were not honest about what the numbers really were. And we lost money that year. Like I think we paid 12,000 and we ended up losing 5 after we worked for a month
Hmm.
on, you know, on being in a kiosk. It was in a mall that people are not really going to. We weren't really the right product.
Mhm.
So, you know, I mean, most of them were successful, but there, you know, a lot of hard work and there was some risk and some, not everything works out, you know,
Yeah.
but you have to be willing to take that risk, you know. We sort of had to suck it up and get through the holiday period. It wasn't like it was a whole year, like when people get in a lease that it's not working, you know.
Right. But how do you have that kind of mentality and mindset to be willing to take the risks and be ready to lose the money?
Yeah, you know, honestly, I think our parents were sort of supportive at first. Well, the first year when I wanted to start a business, my mom used to cut out want ads from the newspaper and put them on my bed because both Katie and I moved home to start the business. Like literally it was a startup story. We worked out of our basement, the whole thing. I mean, like people really do that. You know, we both left our New York apartments, left our jobs. And my mom really just wanted me to have health insurance. You know, she just wanted me to have a solid job. She still does. But my father's a little more entrepreneurial. He was more supportive, you know. So they did give us a little bit of money to work with, like, you know, they always say friends and family around, but you know, I'm talking less than 20,000. You know, it wasn't a lot of money. And I think that we did borrow money at some point, you know, from friends and family to finance some of these shows because you have to front the money in October, you know, so you're not getting paid till the end of January. So in October, you're poor, you're in debt, and by January, there's money back in your bank. But, you know, I think being an entrepreneur is a certain personality. As you know, it's not for somebody that likes stability. I mean, I really have moments where I miss having a paycheck, you know, because if people think that we're making money as entrepreneurs, they said we're the last person to get paid each month, you know.
Mhm.
And so I think having a supportive community around you, you know, like right now, my husband's really supportive, even though he has moments where he says, "What are you doing?" You know, it's a lot of energy and effort, but I think
And
having
I remember you saying he's an entrepreneur as well.
He is. Yeah, he is. He is. So here's a little bit about like the yin and yang. I think that if I had to do it again, Safa, I would build a team of people like my husband, like who's very business minded, very calculated. He's an engineer, math driven. I think I would hire that person, to really help us make projections, because I think my sister and I did it more like artists, like flew from the seat of our pants, Um, and we used programs like QuickBooks, and we had a bookkeeper and an accountant. Like we had people that we checked in with, but on the day-to-day operations level, like our weakest point was like the business projection of like how much money am I making this month? I mean, honestly, and I still struggle with that, because the answer is never clear cut. Each month is different. The money, it comes in one month, it's going out the other, so
Mm,
it's sort of feast or famine.
mm, 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 mm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Going back to those kiosk times in New York, was it New York City?
Yes.
Okay.
Right in Manhattan.
Okay, great. So who were the buyers? Who were the shoppers? And were they more interested in the products or the story behind it or both? What did you tell them exactly for them to buy the product?
hmm Yeah, I think it's a combination. Like they say, people have to like your product. They have to think it's pretty. They want to wear it. And then the story sort of closes the deal, so they're really not buying for the story, although some people probably were. And, we have a mailing list. Um, it's not huge, but it's like more than 5,000 people that and a lot of them were customers from New York. So so like keeping your mailing list going and talking to them and like telling people what you're up to. I think social media is huge, Instagram and Facebook, but I think the mailing list is critical, because they're like loyal customers. They might not open your email every month, but those people, they read this story, so it's like maybe 20% of our emails get opened each month. And in fashion, that's actually high. I think the number's like more like 12 or 14% of people actually open fashion emails. And we don't bombard people, but when I send a newsletter, maybe once a month, twice a month, I try to tell a story about what we're doing in Morocco. And so the customers that are loyal get that, and they're repeat buyers. So
Mhm.
I'd say, New York City, it's like if you want to test a product, what a great place to do it. Such a mix of diverse people, and I would say just culturally a very vast, diverse audience,
Mm.
age diverse, and we also had men shopping for gifts. We have men that are on our mailing list that like our story, and and actually Goldman Sachs was a big supporter. My sister did a business program with them called it was part of their 10,000 small businesses program, and it was like a crash course for her in business for a couple months. And then they had a holiday market that was actually the best single sales day of our entire 12 years, was Goldman Sachs
Mm.
holiday market.
Mm.
We'd almost sold out of our products. We couldn't believe how much business we did, because they did it in the offices in New York. Like it was,
Mhm.
a captive audience.
Mm.
And that's the 1% of the population. They have the, disposable income. So, our products are not cheap because the people that we work with are well paid. And in general, labor in Morocco is not as cheap as like India or China. That's not our mission. So, they have to like the product, and then they like the story, and that,
Mhm.
that keeps them a customer.
Mm.
That said, too, I feel like I some of my challenges, our biggest challenging is marketing.
Right.
How to reach new markets. And people always say to me, why aren't you selling in London and Paris? And I just didn't have the contacts there. Like I could do a trade show there maybe in the future. I just didn't have the bandwidth,
Mhm.
you know, for
Mhm.
sales reps and to expand. But I think that there's a lot of potential in Europe, especially how close Morocco is. And FedEx has new e-commerce shipping solutions that opened up. FedEx now comes to my door in Corriba. They shipped to a customer last Monday. It was there on Thursday in North Carolina. So it was faster than the USPS, the US mail service that we use. So
Right.
I'm shipping direct from Morocco now to the customer. So that's a big shift this year.
Oh,
And that wasn't possible 10 years ago.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I was in Morocco a few weeks back, and I was talking to a cousin of mine about Mushmina and you had her and your sister, and she was pretty convinced that she had met either you or your sister in New York. And she was telling me that she went to this showroom and she was impressed with this countertop that you guys had that was actually an actual door.
Yeah,
Is that right?
that
Okay.
was right. Yeah. So it was in New York, so was that probably one of those pop-ups or
Yeah, yeah. She was like, yeah, it's her, it's her. And I'm like, really? It's a small world.
yeah, that was my sister. She worked for H&M on merchandising before starting the business, so she had a lot of background in displays, and all of our displays were always really creative and over the top. I would say, do we really need to do this? But she would like put the effort in to make it really unique. So yeah,
Well,
that's funny. That was
that
totally.
stuck with her. She was really impressed with how she, transformed the door into a countertop kind of table. And yeah, that's a long time ago, I suppose, isn't it?
Yeah, probably. Yeah. So we did the markets for the first 5 years, and then we had our own shop. So we had a shop in Philadelphia. I don't know if she would have come in to our Philly shop, or we had a shop in Wayne, Pennsylvania, outside of Philly, a more affluent suburb, and we had the same kind of displays there. So we ran those shops for 5 years each. And then my sister sort of had the foresight, like pre-pandemic, just brick and mortar shopping in the US is going down. Like our numbers were going down. We were 3 years in Wayne and our lease was up, and it was a very big space. So we weren't making our own clothing at the time.
Mm.
So we had to buy clothing from other vendors to fill the space that was so big. So, the cash flow issues of that are really challenging. So that's why I said I really don't know how we did that. Like we financed a lot on credit cards, and then through Goldman Sachs, we actually did get a business loan from a bank and refinanced our credit card debt. But we had like $60,000 worth of inventory.
Mm.
So at one point we had $60,000 worth of debt because of that inventory. Because the cash is like in and out. But so I think for someone afraid of debt and afraid of taking those risks, the entrepreneurial path is a tough one. you know.
Totally, I agree. I agree. Tell me a little bit about your daily challenges, Mushmina. Whether it comes to like decision making or managing the artisans, what are the daily challenges you encounter?
I think managing the artisans. Like I said, my phone's buzzing on WhatsApp. I mean, so I speak Darija. My Darija is pretty good. It's like sane for the Mia, it's like 90%. But there's always some new artisan challenge. Like right now that she's sending me pictures of this custom rug, just the nuances of handmade stuff. It's never perfect. The size is never perfect because they're washed and then they shrink. And so really like our wholesale clients have to be really understanding,
Mm.
and we say, okay, the custom rugs are coming in with a 3-inch variant, 8 centimeter variant. And, most people that we work with get that, but occasionally like this week, we had to redo a rug. It's like, it's hundreds of dollars that, so it's a risk. So I feel like that, in Morocco, they say like, oh, it's fine, crepe, it's close enough. But, the American market's tough and they send things back,
Mm.
you know,
I mean,
our big.
this is really important. I mean, I was asking you about the daily challenges that you have, at work, but it's interesting the point that you're mentioning now about quality control. Like, do you actually refrain yourself from sending a product that you don't think is, good enough to be sent, or do you just send it and then hope that the client wouldn't send it back? I mean, how do you proceed with that?
Yeah, I mean, a little bit of both. More of, so I have to quality control. So before I sent this rug, I said, this is coming up a little short. It's still beautiful. So my client said, okay, send it. And they sent it to their end retail client. So the end retail client, my client works with people in India and Mexico. So they understood. But the end client, they're like, it's 5 centimeters short. and it doesn't go in my living room. You know, I mean, they have no idea how much time it took us to get it to here, you know. So anyway, so I mean, this is the first time it happened with a rug that big. So I said, all right, we'll redo it, and I hope they can sell the first one and pay us for it, you know. But a little bit of both. So I picked up a rug order on Saturday, and there's always things I have to tweak. The edging looks, you know, not straight. So when I pick up an order, I have to give myself like 2 or 3 days to quality control it on my own and talk to the client before they say okay and I ship it. You know, so a little bit of both. You
Okay.
know, if something's like glaringly a mistake, I can't send it. We have to redo, or I'll ship an order with a rug short or something. So, you know, a lot of the things that are on our website sometimes in the home category, rugs and pillows are made from mistakes. I'll show you an example actually. I'm in my studio here. These are like Sabra pillows that are really popular. This was from a rug order that the color was just slightly off, so we made pillows.
Oh,
So
that's nice.
they're really pretty, you know.
Yeah.
So
I
a
like.
lot of things, like we design more accessories, but the home products are more like our clients' work, you know. But it's a little tricky, and so I said to them, look, I have pillows on my website that look like your rugs because this is what happened. There's an overstock. So I just want to be transparent about, like, I'm not trying to copy their design, you know, when it's a client piece. And then I said to them, you know, if you want to buy them, that would be even better, you know. So there's a little bit of give and take that has to happen there. But there's like generally like a 10% overstock of pieces that don't work. So I have to, you know, factor that into the math.
Great. So now 12 years in, what would you say was the biggest achievement that you've made so far with Mushmina?
You know, I think two moments. One year, what year was it? I took a note and now I forgot what year. We won a FedEx grant.
Oh.
And it wasn't for a lot of money. It was like under 10 grand, but it was like sort of a not crowdfunding, but you had to have votes from your fans to get nominated for this grant. And then FedEx picked the winners in the end. We were not first prize, we were like second runner up. But that year, then FedEx chose us to do this whole video. They sent their whole team to Philadelphia to film my sister in the store, and they filmed me on Zoom. And I don't know, that year felt like a real recognition of like people are listening to our story. They wanted to tell the story. And then to have the recognition from FedEx. So that year, I would say, I think that was 2012. And then our next big order was, we did an order for QVC. So we worked with QVC for like 2.5 years. We had 3 or 4 big orders with them for our handbags. So we were really known for our handbags when we first started with Moroccan textiles and the leather detailing. So the QVC order, my sister was on air right after Isaac Mizrahi. I was like, my heart was pounding out of my chest because she was on live TV. And, you know, QVC, they have a deal, like, you know, if they don't sell, they send you stuff back. So that was a huge risk. The order was like over 1,000 bags. And, you know, the contract was that they could send 15% back if they didn't sell. So that wasn't like 100%, but it was still risk there, you know. So that was a big success. And we sold a lot of bags, and you can watch them in the green room on real time, how many bags you're selling. And like, that was like the adrenaline of being on national TV. But my sister probably doesn't want to do it again. That was like nerve-wracking for her. And then they ordered 2 more times. So each order was like 1,000 bags. So I'm talking like $100,000 production fee that we have to finance. So we had to borrow money for that one. You know, that we paid back, but to sort of get through those surges. But then, you know, when I thought about it, there's so much risk in having one big customer like that, because what if they don't pay? You know, in the end, they did send some bags back. So, you know, these big customers you think are great, but in the end, I'm like, I actually don't know if we'd work with them again. You know, it was the highlight of like our decade, you know, but the big customers, I mean, to be in small business right now is really, it's difficult because Amazon and all the big guys have really taken over a lot of the market. So
Yeah.
that's a huge challenge.
Yeah, but I suppose you're positioned in a way that you're, like you're a sustainable brand. So a lot of people don't want to shop off Amazon. They'd rather shop directly from these small brands. Do you think the movement is big enough to make it a market, or is it just the starting sort of point now?
I know a lot of people that shop on Etsy, like handmade stuff. I mean, I like it. Before we had our own website, we had an Etsy site. So I feel, and people said to me, oh, you should go back on Etsy. And I'm like, I don't know. It's sort of, you don't know, you know what I mean, where, but I mean, I do think people like shopping from smaller producers like I do. So it's like finding those people and then having them be repeat customers.
Now tell me, Heather, when things are not really going your way, and I suppose that happens quite a lot, as any entrepreneur, how do you deal with the situation? How do you manage yourself first?
Yeah, good question. Oh gosh, how am I going to answer that one?
There's that saying that says when things are not going right, you go left.
Yeah, right. Oh, you know what? Okay, I have a good one. This photographer friend of ours, Heidi, who took a lot of our first photos, I even came to Morocco. She said that a professor in photography once told her, when you're looking at an image, to take an image, sometimes you need to take 2 steps to the left. And when she told me that, that really stuck with me. Like, just change the way you're framing something. Take 2 steps to the left and like rework the way you look at a situation. And it's funny. It's like what you said. Just change the way you're doing it slightly, even just slightly. So I think that we do that, and something that you view as a challenge or as a failure might just be an opportunity to see something in a different way, so. But like the day-to-day, I mean, someone said to me, I actually had a business coach when we first started, through SCORE. Do you know SCORE? It's a free program of the retired professionals. And he was a fashion exec, and he was like coaching my sister and I in New York. And he said to us, you want to start a business? He said, don't do it for the money. He said, if you want to make money, go work for someone else. You'll probably make more money, at least the first decade you will. But he said, it's a marathon and you need to be willing to run it. Like, and that's how I feel it's been, and having a partner, my sister, we're like yin and yang. When I'm up, she's down. And so it's sort of kept our motion forward. So that I do feel like having a solid partner helps, compared to other businesses that are sort of solo led. I feel like a friend of mine has a similar artisan business, and she said, I'm so jealous that you have a sister to work with, like that we keep each other going. So that said,
your sister is full-time as well?
So I have to tell you, so the recent development post-COVID, but pre-COVID, my sister sort of expressed that she was ready to move on, like to do something else, with her life. She said, we spent 10 years doing this. So this is like 2 years ago. And I said, okay, like as her sister, I'm honoring that she's ready to do something else. But we started it together. So it feels so much like a birth and a death of like a partnership as what it was. So this past year, well, since COVID, so about a full-time year, Katie has been totally out of the business. So she moved on. We rewrote the partnership. So now I'm the sole owner. And she does flower medicine, like, so she's working with like herbs and making natural medicine, and she went back to school. So she's in the arts area still, but she is pursuing a different path. So that was sort of a blow for me. Like, do I continue? I really had to come to terms with this. And then we were in the middle of COVID, and I thought, okay, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next, and as far as Katie, I said to her, well, we have a whole life. You could do something different every 10 years. You could start a new business. We can reinvent ourselves as many times as we want. So it's just a matter of what that looks like, So for me, I decided, I'm going to continue because this is what I do. I like live and breathe a Moroccan artisan, and people are depending on me for their income, all of the artisans that we work with. And so I sort of feel like I owe it to them, but I also, I love it. like very much a passion business.
Hmm.
You know, I can't really imagine me doing something else. So that's sort of your question of like, where do we go from here? What's next for Mushmina?
Yeah. So what's
Um,
next?
well, what's funny, so my mission of, employing, empowering women, it sort of came back around this year as consulting. Like, so I've been getting these consulting jobs with the private sector and with NGOs. Like Care Morocco has a big project right now it's called Empowering Women and the Environment. So the idea is it's rural women, it's talking about environmental issues, but also teaching them skills that, can be income generating. And so they hired me to do workshops over the course of 2 years. So each month I prep a workshop, I bring women leaders. It's all about empowering and teaching. So we've just started that program, and we did a natural dyes workshop with them just about a week ago. And then I have another private sector client that works with rural women. It's part of a sustainability, a give back part of their business. And I'm like the local coach for these cooperatives. And it's the same thing. It's skill building, teaching them how to make products.
Hmm.
And I love it. So I'm like, it's sort of this teaching and consulting that came back around, but I feel like it's because I have more than 10 years experience. Like, I don't know that I could have done that 5 years ago. So now I sort of feel like a shift happening, like we're producing less, but I'm teaching more, and that feels good.
Hmm.
So I think that's what's next for me. I still am producing the line. It's just a limited collection. Like I didn't do any wholesale shows this year. So we're just producing online pop-up. It's very small.
Mhm.
But upcycling textiles, like I think everyone came out of COVID thinking, what do we do next? Do I want to do the same thing I was doing before? Do I want to do it differently? The environmental impact of everything we make and buy and produce. So I think I'm sort of in that mode of like making less, but more meaningful pieces. So if that
And-
makes sense.
yeah, and maybe conquering Europe.
Yeah. Oh, I would
Let
love
me
to.
let me know if you have if you need me to do some research for you here. I'll be happy to help out.
Yeah, if anything sort of comes into your horizon of like that would be a good contact or a good trade show. Or I think a trade show might just open the door, me going and meeting people. I
Yeah.
really don't have a network in Europe much, so that's
Oh,
yeah, do let me know if you have any ideas for me.
sure. So tell me, how do you manage to juggle, your entrepreneur life, you being a wife, a mom of two? How does that work?
Well, yeah, it's crazy. Well, my studio, I'll give you a quick little, so this is like in my house. So this is our clothing over here. This is my small line. The studio is in my house. So I'm downstairs and everybody else is upstairs. So, that works mostly. I can close the door sometimes. But in Morocco, I feel like life is very integrated and I like that. Like my kids come down. Actually, I'll show you their area. So they have a desk. There's their desk.
Oh, that's cute.
They have their own creative area. So I had to integrate my business with our life to make it work like that, especially with the lunch break in Morocco. Like I said, it's like, but I always said that I didn't want to commute to work and I didn't want a 9 to 5. So in a way, Morocco offered me the ability to have it sort of be seamless. But, I feel like there's very little boundary about work, family. It all gets mixed together. But, I bring the kids with me to meetings sometimes, especially artisan meetings. Like my kids know the kids of the artisans. You know how Morocco is. It totally works, where it would never work in New York like that. Like I couldn't bring my kid to a meeting, So my short answer is I think Morocco sort of allows me to have that flexibility. And you know why? We had a workshop that was in Wedzem where women came. We had sewing machines. In the end, the women prefer to work in their homes, and it's because of the housework and all of it. And I have firsthand experience of that being a cultural, structure in Morocco where you have to get the lunch on the table, so your loom is better off in your kitchen than in a workshop somewhere, so we had to adapt to the way women work in Morocco to make it work in our business, still very much rural development.
Yeah.
I mean, Casablanca is different, of course, but we're still pretty rural.
That's great. You talked very briefly about something that I'm very much interested in is, what we call failure. So how do you actually approach what, we perceive as being a failure in business?
I don't know. I mean, I definitely feel like I'm in sort of a low moment personally too, like coming out of COVID. I know people that are sort of depressed this month, and Morocco has been very unstable, like borders open, closing, and schools, you don't know if you're coming or going. So I feel like we're all sort of experiencing a lull that I notice in my friends that are other entrepreneurs too, particularly in tourism in Marrakesh. I have friends that own riads and restaurants, and they're like, every time we open, the government closes the border and then our clients cancel. So and my advice to them and their advice to me is like, we have to just stay present, like just be in today, because it's sort of hard to plan like what tomorrow looks like, given all of the challenges that we just went through. Yeah, I think like I feel personally like I'm in sort of a pause, and I think it's okay. Like it's such a driven culture of what's next, what am I doing next? And I called this whole year the year of pause. I just sort of paused. I didn't stop. I just took a pause, So I think just staying present, and the world feels like it changed so much the last year, like the environmental challenges that we are facing, fires, climate change. And, I think it sort of shifted the way I'm looking at business and how people are consuming, I even had this idea where I went to a local flea market, like the Jotea in Corriba, and I bought some t-shirts and some pieces that I thought were cool. And I like sort of redid them. Like I sort of mushminified them. I put hand stitching on them and stuff. And I tried them at one of our last pop-ups, and a lot of pieces sold. And, I thought the idea of like making less, really like fashion, I know of a lot of other sustainable fashion brands that you can wear their clothes and actually send them back. Like Eileen Fisher does the whole thing like that. Like Eileen Fisher, I forget what she calls it, like second time or something, and just looking at like consuming glass. And I'm making some cool jackets right now out of some of our remnant fabrics. And I didn't design any new fabrics this year. I just used what we had, sort of reinventing. So I think that in the year of pause, it just made me look at like, where is the value in the business, and what can I bring to add value to people's lives, not just more fashion to fill up, Does that make sense?
How do you get that sort of wisdom? Have you always been like this, or is it, experience, or do you get coached? Because it's not easy to come to this point and be like, just breathe, relax, take it easy, just stay present. How do you get that sort of mentality?
Yeah, I do. Honestly, I listen to a lot of self-help books. Like this morning, I listened to Gabrielle Bernstein, and she said, spend 15 minutes free writing. What is your story? What is your story? What was your aha moment? But like your truth. What is your truth? And so I did a little journaling this morning, and then I thought, oh, this is good. I'm going to talk to Safa today. Like it sort of made me revisit why I'm doing what I'm doing in the first place, And as a kid, so I mentioned this a little bit earlier, I wanted to be a fashion designer when I was like 7 years old. And my friends from grammar school, we did this time capsule one time where we wrote down what we wanted to be. And they found it recently, and they were like, you said fashion designer at 7. And my parents really tried to talk me out of that. They were like, no, go into advertising. So I didn't really have a formal background in fashion, but had I gone that route, I feel like I would have probably blossomed more. But I mean, anyway,
you never know, to be honest.
Yeah, you never know. I sort of just came like a roundabout way. Tory Burch too, who's one of my favorite designers, and she does a lot to help women entrepreneurs we've been to a lot of her speaking events, and she does pop-ups. But she had no formal training in fashion at all. And now she runs like $1 billion accessory business. So she's somebody I really admire. And, you know, she had like a huge network. Her family had a network. And so like one piece of advice to entrepreneurs pursuing this path, I would say, like, you need that network, you know, drum up that network before you like really dive in completely. I mean, do it at the same time, maybe, you know.
So my last question to you, Heather, I know like I have a zillion questions, but we have to stop this at some point, right? So you mentioned that your advice to a wannabe entrepreneur would be to have the network, right? Or nurture a network. But I know from experience that being an entrepreneur is really a lonely road kind of thing, because you're alone thinking, unless you have a sister or a business partner you can share your ideas with. But generally, if you're starting your business alone, you're just talking to yourself all day long. You may have employees, you may have, you know, people working for you, but you're just talking in your head. What exactly would you recommend people to do to create that network, to get out, to meet people? Because you're mentioning that it's an important part of the business.
Yeah. You know, I think like business networks, I thought of Rabia today in AmCham, the women's events that she used to do. I really miss that. Like I miss talking to you. I met you at one of her events. So I feel like that is so important. And Rebbe has been such a, you know, proponent for empowering women. And I really value her as a person and what she does professionally. So I think, you know, more of that. And these other entrepreneurs that I mentioned in Marrakesh that are struggling with the tourism sector right now, like we talked about creating a group, you know, like a sounding board with a couple of us, and it could be informal, like lunch dates once a month where we all sort of just say, this is what's going on. And maybe there's some structure or a topic, you know. So I think that's something that this month we talked about starting. So I think that's been challenging in COVID because we were all like sort of disconnected from having those in-person meetings. That's why I said to you last week, I was so happy to talk to you. Like, I'm like looking forward to talking because I feel like I haven't had the chance to talk about me and business and any of it. You know, I'm like being consumed with the kids and homeschool and all that 2020, 21 was, you know.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, I think so we can create our own networks, whether it be join professional associations or like find like-minded people. And they don't have to be in the same field. So, anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you so much, Heather, for your time.
Next time I'm going to interview you, Safa. I want to hear how you're coping.
Oh my God, don't ask.
Well, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Heather. Take care of yourself.
Okay, you too. Bye, Safa.